Some of you may be wondering why I find Extra Credit's video on how computer games normalize National Socialism both hilarious and absurd, especially when I have accepted a premise of theirs, namely, that art and media can influence and affect consumers. I shall give a very brief summary of what I think of their thesis, and in so doing, jump upon that train which left the station months ago. The argument on their part is thus: if gamers play German soldiers in multiplayer matches where both the Axis and Allies are by and large interchangeable, in the sense that both teams are mechanically balanced and the game doesn't actively go out of its own way to state who are the good guys and bad guys, the argument is that the people may be influenced by these games to the point where they consider the idea of painting swastikas on a wall to not be unthinkable, but instead merely edgy or dangerous. Extra Credits muse that people might not turn away from neo-Nazi websites and might read the espoused ideas and accept some of them. For the sake of argument, let's suppose that playing a World War II first-person shooter on multiplayer mode, where the Axis and Allies are more or less interchangeable, normalizes National Socialist iconography, to the point where people are more likely to draw swastikas on walls or spend time on neo-Nazi websites. It does not necessarily follow they will accept the ideas and principles of National Socialism, because, quite simply, National Socialism as a worldview is not normalized in World War II games. Every single World War II first-person shooter campaign I have played was from the point of view and perspective of an Allied soldier, either an American, Briton, or Russian. I haven't heard of one World War II first-person shooter where you play as a German, Italian, or Japanese soldier in a single-player campaign. Probably because such a campaign would feel pointless. No matter what you did, you would lose ultimately. In the single-player campaigns of World War II first-person shooters, the Germans are not presented as a morally equivalent force. They are presented as bad and evil. Similarly, the Japanese are presented as evil. No moral equivalency is given to the two different factions in the single-player campaigns of these games. But what about the multiplayer? The very thing Extra Credits were complaining about. Again, there is no normalization of the ideologies and ideas which directed the actions of the Axis powers. If you play as a German soldier in a World War II multiplayer game, you are not going to hear your avatar reciting arguments, propositions, and ideas from Mein Kampf. If you play an Italian soldier, your avatar is not going to be giving renditions of Mussolini's thoughts and speeches. And if you play as a Japanese soldier, your avatar is not going to be explaining the intricacies of the Bushido, nor Japan's right to try conquering its neighbors. Similarly, if you play an American or British soldier in a multiplayer game, they are not going to start talking about the great features of constitutional monarchies or liberal democracies. And if you play a Russian, you are not going to hear any opinions on Bolshevism or communism. No one of these ideologies is promoted or denigrated. At most you may hear some battle cries, such as for king and country, for the people, for the Führer, and so on. But you are not going to hear arguments or counter-arguments concerning the diktats of these ideologies, especially National Socialism. I cannot say I have ever played a World War II first-person shooter in either a single-player match or a multiplayer match and learnt more about the ideas and principles of National Socialism, or any arguments for why it is a reasonable ideology to adopt or follow. It is absurd to claim that World War II first-person shooters normalize National Socialism when the ideology isn't even the real subject matter. The actual ideas and worldviews which influence both sides during the war are never analysed or discussed in any great detail in these games. And most importantly, the precepts of National Socialism are not displayed to the gamer in either an argumentative form or a narrative form. It is an old saying that "thou shalt not" is less effective than "once upon a time." And in these computer games, the ideas of National Socialism are not presented to the player in either fashion. So how on earth is he supposed to be convinced of their validity to the point where he may stumble across a neo-Nazi website and agree with its contents? To contrast, the idea that God doesn't exist or isn't powerful enough to save an individual from diabolic supernatural forces and entities is present in supernatural horror media. No one of the media I have mentioned states this idea in an overt or explicit way. This idea is encapsulated and presented to the audience member in the form of a narrative. An argument activates the mind of the listener, but many audience members want to turn their brains off when they watch a film or play a computer game, and so are more at risk of internalizing ideas unconsciously. Here is the main thing: ideas actually have to be present in the medium for the transmission of ideas to be possible. In short, the problem with extra credits thesis is not in stating that computer games are capable of normalizing Nazis or National Socialism. It is in stating that current computer games are doing this. Currently, they are not. Is it possible that the next generation of World War II first-person shooters may be designed with the intention to try and normalize National Socialism? Yes. But first, it is unlikely. And second, it hasn't happened yet. Therefore, the team at Extra Credits is wrong. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with friends and family. You are cordially invited to subscribe and to also follow me on Twitter, for as long as I last on that platform. If you are already a subscriber, you are encouraged to follow me on BitChute, just in case YouTube decides to terminate my account for some reason. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have an excellent day.